And welcome to another edition of Up Your Assets podcast. My name is Ray Ferrara, CFP, founder and executive chair of Provise Management Group, LLC. Our podcasts are educational in nature and not designed for personalized advice. Please speak with your financial advisor, attorney, or CPA before making any financial moves. Additionally, no guest on our podcast pays to be on the show. We do not endorse any of the products or services, and the opinions expressed by our guests are clearly their own and not necessarily those of Up Your Assets. Today's topic is on the subject of long-term care. It is estimated that 70% of those age 65 or more will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. On average, women are going to spend 3.7 years needing long-term care, and men about 2.2 years. Besides gender, those that are older, unmarried, with less access to health care, low income, and exposed to negative social factors are more likely to need long-term care. 83% of this care is provided by family and friends. And even with this, the cost of long-term care can approach $35,000 to well over $100,000. Today, our guest is Alex Chamberlain, CEO of EasyLiving, based in Clearwater, Florida. EasyLiving provides personalized home health care that promotes independence and well-being. Alex has basically been in the business his entire life, as his mother, who is an attorney that specializes in elder care law, recognized the need for these specialized services in a company she created called Aging Wisely in 1998, which merged with EasyLiving in 2016. EasyLiving provides a unique combination of services to meet the needs of patients and caregivers. Alex, welcome to Up Your Assets.
Ray, I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate you having me on as a guest, so thank you.
Well, there's lots to cover, so let's just jump right in. How do you approach long-term care planning for your clients? What's the first thing you look at when you start helping someone plan for their future care needs in the current environment?
I really like having a consultative approach with our clients, and I really break it down with where they're at, what we call the decision decade. So I believe when you kind of turn 65 to 75, you kind of have one conversation there. 75 to 85, if that's when they come into our company, we'll have a different conversation. And then 85 plus, we'll have a different one. So kind of narrowing down with, I would say, our average client who starts with us on the consultative side is usually around 70 years old. And so I really like to ask them first, what is it that you want? And how is it that you want to age? Because aging is unique to every individual. And then to help kind of get the conversation going, because depending where they're at, that could be a little bit of a rough start, maybe even a little overwhelming. I usually ask, did you take care of your parents? And what did you like about how your parents aged? And then based on how they share that story, they can usually frame out what is it that they want. Is it aging in place, staying at home? Is it downsizing to a condo or moving to an assisted living? And then we just start pulling that thread from there.
So when it comes to that long-term care, what do you think the most common misconception people have when it comes to preparing financially for it? And I'll add a few comments as well, but I'd like to hear your comments first.
I would say financially is just what the cost really is now, and then how long you're going to live for. So I remember when I got into the business 2008, our average age of a customer was probably high 70s, and now it's 84. And then we have probably six or seven clients now that are over 102 years old. Our oldest client's 108. So it's outliving your assets is becoming a much larger fear. And then how long can I afford to kind of stay in the quality or the lifestyle that I'm living now? And that's where that conversation starts tracking back to when you're in your 70s, 60s, and before. So yeah, I would love to hear kind of how you frame it.
So, there are different ways, and we'll talk about it later in the podcast, of trying to cover the costs. First of all, there's self-insurance. People just are going to pay for it out of their pocket. And as you just pointed out, the question is, well, how long will my resources last? And when I commented in the intro, is about $100,000 a year as just kind of a nice round number. You can take the number of assets, divide 100,000 into it, and you've got a pretty good idea how it's going to last, how long it's going to last. But there's always those surprises that come in to play that where we think it's going to be 100,000, there's other issues that are there. There's insurance that you can buy, indemnity insurance, if you will, to help cover the cost in a long-term care facility. It's very expensive. In fact, it has become almost stupidly expensive. But like any insurance, we pay the premium and think it's high. And then we hope we never have, the accident in the car, or the fire in the house, and, but we're glad we have the insurance when we need it. And then there's certain annuities and life insurance policies that will also allow you to access the death benefit prior to going in. So you look at all of those alternatives for each individual. At the end of the day, Alex, I think the biggest problem is that those who really will need the insurance are going to find it very difficult to afford it, and as a result, it will decrease the quality of their life later in life.
We do spend a good bit of our time with our clients really focusing on those health factors, right? So I always kind of look at it, there's lifespan and health span. So lifespan, we can just say is how long are you going to live? And then health span, for the sake of our conversation, is the quality of life that you have. So when we do our long-term care planning, we really focus on what is their health situation like, and then how proactive are they being? So are they getting their vision checked every year? Are they getting their dental done twice a year? Are they getting their hearing checked, their physical? Those are kind of your baselines that you should be getting every single year, where you could start to really take control of your aging journey to help kind of maybe mitigate or reduce some of those costs down the line. Because obviously, if you catch this stuff sooner, you can kind of maybe get it under control before it runs away from you and you get into a more costly situation, such as a hospitalization or even pre-placement than you had in mind for a facility or what have you.
So, Alex, do you find that people are coming to explore your services in advance of when they're going to actually need them? Or do you find them coming at that point in time where it's becoming more painfully obvious that they need some form of assistance?
I'd say we're still truthfully probably 90-10, meaning 90% of our services are utilized in that crisis moment. There's been a new diagnosis, there's been a change of condition, there's been a hospitalization, and families are concerned and they reach out to me to kind of have that conversation about their loved one. I will say that 10% I do believe is continuing to grow to where we call them kind of the planners. They're folks that have been usually a caregiver before and they've taken care of their parents and they're like, I don't want to do it the way that my mom went or the way that my dad went. And how do I kind of put that plan in place so that my kids are maybe aware of what my wishes are? And then how do we set up, again, whether it's financially or just again that quality of life to how to where when they age on their terms, and we're seeing more and more of that. I do believe that next generation that's coming through with some of these baby boomers, as we kind of have always categorized it by wars, right? Which we've been grateful to not have so many wars back to back, but it was like the World War II vets, they were such a large generation. And then kind of your Vietnam, we're seeing a lot of those clients now. And then there's kind of that big gap year, and that's more of the baby boomers coming through, and they're much more proactive with taking care of themselves as well as planning for the future than any other generation has been before.
Well, I think our clients here that we work with, they are definitely um, healthier than their parents were. Thankfully, due to medicine, to generally taking care of themselves, less people have smoked throughout their entire lives, which probably is one of the reasons why people are living longer, and your average age is going from something in the upper 70s to 84. So, how do you help your clients balance the importance of maintaining functional fitness with planning for their future care in terms of both their lifestyle and, on my side, financial readiness?
We really look for health's a major box that we check, and then we jump right into where you're at with kind of your physical, mental, social, and your creative activities. Because the saying is true, if you kind of don't use it, you'll lose it. So, where are you at kind of physically wise? Because we really like to talk with families on what is it that you want to be doing. And what I found when we make it about them and we really understand what is it that they want. Do they want to be playing golf? Do they want to be able to walk around Disney with their grandkids? Are they able to lift luggage in the overhead bin so they can continue to travel? So you can kind of start to see as your body kind of declines where you're at with your physical fitness, it really starts to hinder your quality of life. So we really want to put that plan in place for you and then provide you with those resources, whether that's personal trainers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, to help make sure that you're able to maintain that quality of life through your physical activities. And then social piece is huge. The number one thing we usually see, especially with males, they refuse to wear hearing aids and then they
What?
quit going out
What?
to
I'm sorry,
dinner.
what'd you say?
Exactly. Because hearing is a huge piece of your quality of life, but then they quit going out because it's too loud, or they won't go out to dinner because they don't want to wear their hearing aids, and they kind of self-isolate. And social isolation is such a huge part of why people start to decline in their quality of life. And I think what we've seen coming out of COVID is really what that impact has done for so many people. It was almost like sensory deprivation with so many seniors because they had no contact with other folks and they just start to decline cognitively. And I would say that's always one of the top fears of many of our clients and families is kind of that cognitive Alzheimer's type path. So how do you help ward some of that off? You can't do it all, right? It's genetics and somewhat, but there are some preventative things you can put in place. And we talk with families on how to kind of improve their physical, mental, and social health.
Well, that's a great segue into talking about health considerations, not only the physical health, which is what most of us think about, but the vision, the hearing, which you just mentioned, dental care. All of those are critical as we age. And what we have found in doing financial planning with folks is, unfortunately, most people think of Medicare as being free, which of course it's not. Part A is clearly free, except for the deductibles that are involved. But because it comes out of our Social Security checks, we don't think of it as we're paying for it, and that and people don't realize how expensive it can be. And not only is it can it be expensive, it becomes more expensive the more income that you have, as you go through life. And so there's a base rate that occurs, but after you start reaching certain income levels, it becomes even more expensive. Then on top of that, you have to think in terms of a drug policy. You have to think in terms of a supplement policy if you have traditional Medicare. And a lot of people now are moving towards Medicare Advantage, because they don't need a supplement. They're not going to need a drug policy. It's all encompassed into one, but you're still paying for it at the same rate that you would pay for Medicare. And people underestimate. As an example, we have clients who are in those upper brackets that together on traditional Medicare are paying $23,000 a year, almost $2,000 a month for that medical care. What do you see with your clients? Are they well prepared? Have they been well advised, or are they shocked to learn not only the expenses that they're incurring on the health insurance side, but what they may incur in using the services of aging wisely?
I think they're all pretty shocked. I would say we are all with inflation kind of over the last 4 or 5 years, right? Of just how that's kind of creeped up. I mean, you look at your average cost of an assisted living in, I would say, the Pinellas County area, the cheapest studio, 300, 200 square foot apartment, you're probably looking at 5, 6, 7,000 a month. And then you start kind of going up from there to where 10,000 a month for assisted livings. And then even on the home care side to where traditionally home care has been significantly cheaper, which is kind of what we do in our wheelhouse. Even that's kind of creeped up a little bit due to inflation with our staff wages. And then the other inflationary items that have hit property taxes, homeowners insurance, obviously being a hurricane prone market. So, yeah, just like what you shared with between the Medicare cost going up and then your property taxes going up, your insurance going up, it is becoming tougher out there. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on family caregivers. And it's hard. That's why you really have to kind of put that plan in place. And we're trying to catch clients earlier and earlier in their aging journey, really kind of coming out of that 65 age, thinking about retirement or retiring of let's jump and put this plan in place now so that you have that time to save. Kind of like me now at 40, right? It's like, okay, I got to kick my own 401k right into gear because I'm running out of time to kind of do that compounding. You really have to do that at 65, excuse me, at 65. And I would say that's the cool thing with how healthy we are aging, to kind of take the fear out of the conversation that I kind of just shared with you, is you're not going to need these services for another 20 years, for another 25 years. So I think that's kind of the bright spot, that even though the costs are going up, we are living healthier and longer. And so the costs that you might incur are not going to hit you at 70, 72, 73. It's going to hit you at 84, 85 plus. And so it's how will that quality of life be when you're 85 to 95? And that's really some of that conversation we have to have at 65 for it to be done successfully.
You're right on point. One of the things that we recommend, when you consider the cost of the long-term care in a facility somewhere that you talked about, is there's certain expenses that you're not going to have anymore if you are in a long-term care facility. You're not going to be going out to dinner. You're not going to be traveling. You're not going to need the same amount of clothing, etc. Some of your care will be taken care of there at the nursing home, and so when we talk to people about potentially acquiring long-term care insurance in the traditional way, we tell them, we're not here to sell that long-term care insurance. We're here to protect you and to try to protect your assets. And really, you probably only need 60 to 70% of whatever that daily cost is, because it's going to be offset by things you can't do anymore. And so it does help to modify the premium that they have to pay, and maybe make it a little more reasonable as a result. But even then, it can still be expensive. So you talked a little bit about the social part of aging and well-being, and I mentioned in the beginning those that are not married, those that may have socio-economic issues and are not socializing. How do you integrate the social factors into your practice with your clients? For instance, how do you address the emotional and social needs of clients that they may face as they go into this new phase of life, often which is um, depressing in and of itself?
There's no one size fits all. It takes time, it takes trust building, and it takes really getting to know our client, which I would say is what we do really well. So, one of the things that we always like to ask is, what'd you like doing, whether that was growing up or the last 10 years, 5 years, and then really try to lean into those activities. Like you can't force people to get out of their house. So sometimes we'll bring kind of the party to them, right? Whether that's, bringing in one of our pet therapy dogs and things like that to get some activities there, pending where they live. Can we walk the beach? Can we go for a drive? Just small little steps to help get you out, back engaged with the community. The YMCA has some great programs out there for seniors to help them get re-engaged. Of course, there's that Medicare benefit as silver sneakers. So how could you leverage that? A lot of these gyms out there have some really cool communities built within their gyms that are specific for seniors. Of course, there's your different faith-based programs that do phenomenal work, but I would say it's really unique to each individual. Obviously, we're great with golf and some of the country clubs that we have here that put on some fantastic events. I even like doing different stays, whether that's at independent or at assisted livings. If you live at home, you could still go there and engage with other seniors in those markets and get to hang out with them. Of course, one of the things that we always ask when we kind of start getting to know you and building that long-term plan is what does your social circle look like today? And depending on what they say, we can provide different recommendations to help keep you engaged, all the way through of even our care managers or one of our caregivers to help kind of engage you. I know for some of our seniors, we actually created our own card game that we play with our clients to help keep them engaged. And it just helps build rapport because there is usually oftentimes with our caregivers and our clients that generational gap. Our caregivers are oftentimes kind of 28 to 35 and our clients are obviously 80 to 95. And so, how do you build that rapport? And we found that kind of through our fun and engaging card game has been a great way to build that relationship and start to get to know one another.
That's really interesting. I mean, you're gonna have to teach me that game so I can see what it is you're
Oh,
doing.
I got it right here. So, yeah, I'll
There
give you a copy.
there you go. So, let's go back to the financial matters for just a minute. I talked a minute ago about the long-term care and the expense that's involved. Some progressive insurance companies have come out with life insurance policies that you can purchase at older age. Usually, it's with a single premium, although not always. But in essence, it will allow you to access the death benefit of the policy in advance of actually dying to be able to use for the cost of being in a facility somewhere. Um, the policies are not inexpensive, but the beauty of those, and you have to be really careful because some of them have a lot of cost involved in them, and you want to get multiple quotes on these types of policies. But the beauty of them is that if you get it and it's there for long-term care costs, and you never need it, the family is going to get the death benefit when you pass away. So unlike the indemnity plan where you pay a premium, and then if you never go into a facility, you never get to use it, this kind of gives a back door to help protect the other side and that you don't lose all of those premiums. Similarly, with certain annuities, you can do a similar thing. Um, and so, again, things for people to look at alternatives because there are now alternatives that didn't exist before. And Alex, what we have found is that when these extra expenses come in, and assuming that you're not in a nursing home, but you're at home and you have these additional costs, what happens is people don't really run out of money. They start adjusting their lifestyle to be less expensive than it was before. And that's the sad part of this happening, as we pointed out in the beginning, that'll happen to 70% in some form or fashion. They're going to need long-term care assistance going forward. Is it decreases that lifestyle? Well, how do
And
you?
when you see that, real quick on that, do you coach families or does it happen organically? Like, have you seen families realize that it's like, okay, I used to travel again, making up 10 times a year, but my body's not allowing me to do that. So now I might do 5 times a year. Have you come across that when kind of reviewing financial plans that you've noticed that kind of change in condition that might trigger another conversation, such as, hey, like Ray, you used to travel like 10 times per year, now you're down to 5. Does that raise any red flags for you that there might be more issues going on than what you see?
Absolutely. And we do encourage people to early in the retirement, while they still have their health, to do as much as they possibly can. I've talked about this before on the Up Your Assets podcast, but as you know, my wife has Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, and she has basically been homebound for the last 5 years. And we clearly do not do what we used to do. And one of the things we loved more than anything else was to travel around the world. And we were blessed to get to all 7 continents and 80 countries. And I can
That's
say,
awesome.
thanks. I can say, I don't have to say, I wish I had a. because we did it. And now, would we have liked to have done more? Of course, but we did do a lot of that. And I try to coach clients while they still have their health and everything else. Take advantage of it, because we never know, when that time is going to come, that not something that takes away our life, but something that takes away our lifestyle and our ability to do things.
I've kind of seen 75 seems to be that number to where kind of health roulette sometimes come into play. Like I've seen, 75, 85-year olds that just so many inspiring stories. Like I will share one, like Bob Bose. He's a great guy that I admire too, of guy who's just aging so well, who stays active, forces himself to be curious. I'll never forget, we ended up doing a golf lesson together, and I'm like, what's this guy? Which I didn't know him at the time. So I was like, what are you doing here? Like you're significantly older than me. Like I'm just trying to learn the game. And he's like, Alex, I just want to get 20 more yards out of my drive. And I just found that so inspiring of like, man, he's 80 plus out here still wanting to get better at life. And that's awesome. And I just think that kind of following with what you shared, I think is you keep that curiosity and you kind of keep pushing your body like that when you start at 65, traveling, staying busy, staying active. If you're able to maintain that, you actually end up living, I would say, significantly longer from that health span perspective or that quality of life perspective versus kind of slowing down.
Alex, let's talk a little bit about people who are coming to you today, and perhaps they have they're in need of maybe somebody to help them a few hours a day, or maybe every other day, or something like that. What is the range of services that you're able to provide to the clients at Aging Wisely?
Yeah, so I would say slight name change. We merged to Easy Living. So we were kind of two separate companies there for a little bit, just to give you some brief history. Aging Wisely, like you shared, was founded by my mom. So she was an elder law attorney by trade and just kind of realized there were some gaps in the marketplace on where she wanted to help seniors kind of navigating their aging journey. And that's really where the care management business was found. So we started as a care management company, helping families from navigating new diagnoses, the healthcare system, facility placements, Medicaid, kind of which plans are available, which plans are best for our county specifically, because kind of it's a contract-based system. And then it was kind of through that journey that Easy Living was born, which is our home care company. And that's really where I came about through that lens, to where I actually went to Palm Harbor University High School here and got my CNA license. They had a medical magnet track. And so that's kind of where I got my start in. Long story short, at that time, home care was not in my plan at 16, 17, 18, going through high school. But the job that I was hoping to get after college was pulled in the recession. So 2008, my job offer was rescinded. So I kind of do what every other kid does and calls home and says, "What now, mom?" And that's where she was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a home care company. Would you like to come back and help me get this off the ground until you find something else?" And I said, sure. What's funny, actually, I have my CNA license. So let's go ahead and get this thing off the ground. And 17 years later, I just love the business. I love helping seniors. I love working with caregivers. And so, where we've continued to grow is we like to help families all through their aging journey, wherever they're at in it. So, from a service perspective, we have our care management, we have our home care. So, that's all of our CNAs that can assist with all of your activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, grooming, transportation, housekeeping. And then we have skilled nursing. So, we can do full on medical care, medication administration in the home. So, as I kind of like to say, we can provide all the same services of assisted living in the comfort of your own home. So, we help people age in place.
And clearly, that's what the vast majority of us want, is to stay in our home if it's at all possible, and most importantly, if it's safe. Because the last thing you need is stay at home, stay at home, stay at home, not get some services and help, and then fall, break a hip, and then we got a whole new set of problems to address. So let's talk just a little bit for people to get a sense of what your services would cost. If I'm going to have somebody to come in and check on me, let's say 4 hours a day, maybe take care, I don't know, will they take care of some household chores at the same time while they're there? What kind of costs are involved in that?
Yeah, so we can do as little as 1 hour a day. And it really just depends. All of our stuff is custom to what the client needs. So I'm a huge proponent of our clients come to us with problems and we like to provide solutions. So I would say a solutions-based organization, not necessarily a service-based organization, because we solve people's problems. So yes, many of our clients kind of get their foot in the door with having somebody to come into their house with housekeeping, transportation, meal preparation, things of that nature. And then as your health continues to go down that journey, we might start helping you transfer safely to help prevent falls. Maybe that's helping you bathe to provide that reassurance getting in and out of the tub so there's no slips there. And we just build a custom care plan to fit what problems that you're having. It usually starts with us. We'll meet with our clients and do what we call an at-risk assessment. We're just going to review where you're at risk. We're going to provide some recommendations, maybe some things to think about, and then we'll move forward from there on what makes the most sense.
Well, I hope that as people have listened to this podcast, if they haven't looked at not just the financial side, but the health side as well, I hope that they'll make it a point to visit with a financial planner somewhere to understand some of the implications that we've chatted about. That they'll reach out to someone like yourself to understand what services are available to them, because the feeling of being ignorant is not something any of us want to have, and sometimes we're reluctant to go explore. But I encourage people to go out and explore to find out what it is that they can do. So, final thoughts. What do you see happening as we go forward? What's going to be the biggest challenge that people are going to face in the future? Particularly as you've said, you have a client at 108, which obviously has very different needs than somebody at 75. But what some of those challenges will be the same. But what's the biggest that you're seeing people face?
I think in Pinellas County, the macroeconomic factors are there of the silver tsunami is here. So I think aging in place is going to be important. Are our homes structured for that, such as room for walkers, wheelchairs, things of that nature? And then in Pinellas County specifically, we're out of land. So where are we going to build more senior housing, such as assisted livings, independent livings, and nursing homes, because they're also going to reach capacity with their censuses too. So we're going to have to start getting creative on how we can age in place and how we can take care of our seniors. And I would say that's kind of what I'm worried about on top of caregiving shortages. So there's only so many caregivers in our local markets. So how can we make sure that there's enough quality caregivers and how can we train enough quality caregivers to help take care of the seniors that need the most care because they're the most vulnerable?
Alex, what's the one thing you wish more people understood about long-term care planning from your perspective and view? And I'm going to extend that not just to the clients that are going to need the help, but to the families that are going to be responsible for also helping to provide some of that care in most cases.
Say the big message I would love to get across is one, you don't have to go through it alone. And then two, if you do plan, you can reduce so much stress, anxiety, anguish that you just don't have to go through. And it's just having these conversations as kind of some of the training we all go through or the literature. It's usually kind of sitting down and having this conversation with your family, kind of when the adult children turn 40 or the parents turn 70, while everybody's kind of still healthy and able to have these conversations. But it's just sitting down with your kids or your family or your social network of how is it that you want to age, or your kind of trusted advisors, such as your financial planner, to have these conversations. Because if you have this plan in place, it's not an if you kind of come across long-term care, it's just a matter of when. And when that need hits, it's great to kind of dust off this plan at a drawer, or that's at your lawyer's office or with your financial planner and your file to say, here's what dad wanted, or here's what mom wanted, and here's what we're going to do. And executing a plan is always much less stressful than kind of having that oh crap moment of what do we do now? And I would say that's to where I would encourage more families to do that because it is possible.
Well, Alex, I want to thank you very much for being with us today to discuss long-term care and some of the services that are provided by Easy Living. I just want to say thank you very much for imparting this. Perhaps at some point we'll update this for others to be thinking about. But I sure appreciate you being with us today.
Awesome, Ray. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, that's the conclusion of another episode of Up Your Assets. Take care. Be well.